16 states filed suit Monday against President Trump's emergency declaration on the southern border, while coast to coast, people protested the White House strategy. CBS's Mark Liverman has the latest.
From Santa Barbara to South Bend and other cities,
we've got to keep fighting against this emergency.
President Trump's plan to bypass Congress to build a border wall brought out protesters Monday.
Again, there's no emergency. The president himself admitted it last week when he says, I didn't need to do it. I'd just rather do it faster.
During Friday's emergency declaration, the president predicted lawsuits would follow.
Sadly, it'll go through a process and happily we'll win, I think.
Monday, California and more than a dozen other states filed a suit to block the move.
The president is overreaching. He's going beyond his executive powers, and he's doing this knowing full well that there is no emergency crisis at the border.
The president's emergency declaration is intended to secure billions in funding for the wall by diverting the money from defense and other departments.
Money that could be spent on taking care of veterans, money that could be spent on educating America, money that could be spent on an infrastructure that would really make America better.
The White House plans to challenge the notion that the emergency declaration is unconstitutional.
If the president can't defend this country, then he cannot fulfill his constitutional oath of office.
President Trump vowed last week to take his fight to the Supreme Court. Mark Liverman, CBS News.
On Monday, Customs and Border Protection confirmed the death of a third migrant at the southern border since December. The 45-year-old Mexican national who suffered heart failure died after crossing the U.S.-Mexico border into Texas earlier this month. Now, closer to home, these cold months put a lot of strain on people, especially those who do not have a place to go. But the Billings community has stepped up in a big way to help those in need. Q2's Samantha Sullivan has more.
When the Community Crisis Center is at capacity, the Community Crisis Center has 18 beds and has a capacity of 45 individuals in the building. And on extremely cold nights, if they reach capacity, what they do is they will send clients to Billings First Congregational Church.
It takes some of the pressure off of my staff. When we have 45 persons in the building, it's very, very busy and it's very, very intense.
When temperatures dip below freezing and the crisis center can't take in any more people, those with the lowest level of needs are sent to a local church for care and a warm place to stay.
They are screened for low-level needs because we want to make sure that we're sending the churches our low-level needs persons and that we are keeping persons that are in dire crisis at the crisis center.
So far, 3 local churches have gotten involved, and all volunteers go through some basic training. Mats were donated to the church by the Phoenix, which is a sober living gym in town, and meals are provided through the crisis center to those staying overnight.
Sending them to the churches gives those folks that get to go, we're typically sending between 5 and 10, are able to go into a much more peaceful situation where they can actually rest and they can have, a listening ear from a volunteer.
Lisa Harmon says she's proud to see not just the faith community, but the community at large coming together to help those in need.
It's just been a great program to help the Crisis Center in the incredible work that they do to work with vulnerable populations. And so we are happy to be a part of the solution.
In Billings, Samantha Sullivan, MTN News.
And Samantha tells us the next volunteer training is 1 week from today on February 26th from 6 to 8 p.m. at Billings First Congregational Church. From the 66th session, 2 prisoners currently sit on Montana's death row, and a potential bill in front of state lawmakers could eliminate execution from their futures. Montana has executed 74 people in its history, and since the death penalty's reinstatement in 1976, there have only been 3, with the most recent in 2006. House Bill 350 would replace the death penalty with a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Groups such as the Montana Innocence Project and ACLU Montana support the bill sponsored by Republican Mike Hopkins of Missoula. Members worry innocent people could end up on death row. They also argue the death penalty unfairly affects people from certain ethnic and economic backgrounds.
A person's chance of being executed goes up if they are not white, not wealthy, or not mentally sound. As I've said before in this committee, the only way to guarantee a fair system that does not put innocent people to death is to abolish capital punishment completely.
Opponents of the bill argue the state already has the ability to sentence murderers to life in prison without parole. Some also testified the only way to keep murderers from continuing to kill, even while in prison, is through the threat of the death penalty. Last week, Wyoming lawmakers voted down a bill to abolish its death penalty, which has only been used once since the 1976 reenactment. Meanwhile, budget panels are wrapping up their first draft of Montana's $10 billion two-year budget. The Corrections Department and Montana courts consuming much of that funding. MTM's Mike Dennison takes a look at those budgets and the bigger picture.
The State Corrections Department had a nearly $4 million cost overrun this year and asked for another 3.5% increase over the next 2 years. But a joint appropriations subcommittee examining its budget voted Monday to keep the biennial increase at 1.6%. Panel Chairman Matt Regier, a Republican state representative from Columbia Falls, said lawmakers hope criminal justice reform passed in 2017 will start showing savings in corrections.
It is an increase, not near the increase that was asked for. It's more in line with an inflationary increase. Yeah.
The panel also scaled back by almost one-third the $12.5 million increase requested by the Office of Public Defender, whose budget has been steadily growing since its inception a dozen years ago. Here again, lawmakers expect sentencing reforms could help slow this budget growth.
Once those bills start taking effect, it takes a little while for those to go, but the hope is then that ripple effect will hit out even to OPD and save in the future caseload growth.
The longer discussion on this item Monday was whether cities and counties should pay more to support public defenders. Senator Ryan Osmundson of Buffalo said local governments sometimes pass and enforce laws leading to more criminal cases.
There are some challenges that we have with ordinances being passed by local cities that are costing the state, and all stakeholders do need to have, as they say, skin in the game, so that all stakeholders are trying to watch the costs.
The committee requested a bill that could change local contributions, but members said the bill may just ask for a study of the issue that reports back to the 2021 legislature. The panel also approved state funding for drug treatment courts in Helena and Polson. But this is just the first step in crafting the budget. The huge public health budget has its first votes on Tuesday, and we'll have more details on the overall plan later this week. At the Capitol, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
And Mike tells us these initial subcommittee recommendations go on to the full House Appropriations Committee for a vote next month. Well, despite the snow and cold, fire mitigation experts say now is the time to start preparing your property for potential wildfires. That includes developing an evacuation strategy with the entire family in case a fire threatens the area, designate an emergency meeting location, have several escape routes, and plan for pets or any large animals. Homeowners should also take a good look at the property to plan what needs to be done once the snow melts. Fire mitigation season officially kicked off last week, but experts say it's really a year-round activity.
I mean, it's no secret. Fires are getting bigger, hotter. The fire season itself is longer. And there's a lot more structures at risk. There's been a lot of building going on around the state of Montana, and much of that is in the wildland-urban interface.
And homeowner associations can get in contact with Fire Safe Montana now to start developing vegetation management and evacuation plans. Before we take a break, a team of Montana students is dreaming of a world win, and this group is getting closer every year. This Missoula robotics team, made of students all across the Garden City, are headed to Calgary, Alberta for the worldwide tournament. Last year, they made it all the way to semifinals and say this year they increased their robot design and beefed it up, so it's working much better. These Montana students say it means a lot to them to compete and out-engineer students from big schools all across the country and around the world. They head to Calgary for the competition in April. Thank you so much.